So after we've taken a bit of time to look at push notifications and how we can drag objects around the screen in the way that we want to for our Tinder app, it's time to get back onto the main thrust of the app and complete our sign up process. So first off, let's sort out our login setup that we have at the moment. So at the moment, it automatically logs the user in regardless of whether they're currently logged in. So that's not great behavior. So really, we want a button for the user to log themselves in. And to find one, I'm just going to jump over to Google and look for login with Facebook button. And we should get a few suggestions of images. I like the look of that one. Except actually it looks like it's got a background, which we don't really want. So let's go for this one here. Nice and simple. Sign in with Facebook. Lovely. So save image as. And I'll just call it sign in with Facebook. And then we'll drag it into our app. There we go, and I will copy it this time. Of course, if this was a production app, we'd have to be careful about copyright and ownership, etc. But I think we're on fairly safe ground using something like this in an educational context like this. And let's bring in a button, which I'm going to try and center horizontally and vertically. And we're going to use an image for our button. There we go. Make it a little bit smaller perhaps. So again, center horizontally and vertically. Just have a look. I think that might be a little bit too wide for our basic iPhone. I'll just resize again and then position again. There we go. And then let's fix our constraints. So width and height. And also we want to center horizontally and vertically. There we go. And it'd be good to have a bit of a title screen. I was searching for Tinder there. I don't know why. Label is what I want. So we'll just put Tinder at the top. There we go. Big enough. Center that. And then set the top constraint, width and height. And center horizontally in the container. There we go. So it's not the best looking sign up screen ever. And you'd probably want some links to other sign in methods, but you can add those on your own app. This does the job at least for what we're after here. So now let's create our outlet or our action for our sign in with Facebook button. I can drag it from there, it's slightly easier. I'll call it sign in. There we go. And now, of course, we want to add the code to sign in to the button code rather than view did load. There we go. So now we're not going to have this automatic login attempt every time, but we do want to segue the user to a logged in screen if they are already logged in. So we've dealt with that before. Let's add a new view controller. We'll pop it there. And for the moment, I'm not going to worry about what that view controller is going to contain, but I'm going to control drag to create a segue from it from our first view controller. And then we'll call that segue so show sign in screen. I'm just copying that for now as well. And then we'll jump over to viewController.swift, and remember we need to put our segues in the view did appear method, not view did load. Not getting much help from autopredict here, so we'll just type it out ourselves. So view did appear, animated boolean. So I want to initiate the segue. The user is logged in. So let's check to see if let username is equal to pfuser dot current user, which is an optional dot username. So if this exists, then we should do the segue. And so we want perform segue with identifier. And the identifier is what we copied to the clipboard a moment ago. So show sign in screen, and the sender is the view controller, which is self. So let's just check that. We should now find, because we are logged in, that we jump straight to the new view controller. And I think I've got a capital I where I should have a small one there. There we go. So let's just check. We should now do the segue. There we go. Fantastic. So it's segued to the new screen because we're logged in. The only thing to add here is to perform the segue as well when the user successfully logs in. And to test that, I'm just going to log the user out to start with, and we do that using pfuser.logout. So now, yes, we do need a self there, because it's on the view controller that we're performing the segue. So now we should find the user is logged out, which means that we can use the sign in with Facebook button, which will perform the Facebook sign in. We've already authorized it, so that should be fine. And then OK, and then we get the segue. Brilliant. So let's leave the user logged in now. So now we're going to create our sign-in screen where we're going to get a bit more information from the user, or specifically from the user's Facebook account. So let's create a new class. So new file to manage our sign-up screen. So it's Cocoa Touch class. It's going to be a subclass of view controller, and I will call it sign up view controller, because this is where we're going to get the information about the user. There we go. And then let's just link that to our new view controller in the usual way. So custom class up here is going to be sign up view controller. There we go. So now let's add a bit of information here. So first of all, let's just have a little title of sign up. So we're going to show this to the user when we don't have any more information about them, i.e. they've just signed up. Okay, so same as before. Centering everything. Top constraint, width and height. And center horizontally. And then we're going to have an image, which is going to be the image of the user, and we're going to use the Facebook image on their Facebook page. And if you remember, if we use aspect fit, then that will use the space as best it can, but it will use the correct aspect ratio because we've got no idea what aspect ratio that image is going to come in. And there's one piece of information that's going to be relevant to us that we're not going to be able to find from the user's Facebook profile, and that is whether they're interested in men or women. So let's find that out now. So we'll start with a label. I am interested in. And then we'll have a switch. And a couple more labels. Men and women. Now there may well be some other options, but I'm going to keep it simple here. And we'll just have those two. And then we'll have a button for sign up. There we go. Let's just sort out these constraints. So that one's a nice straightforward top, width, height, center horizontally. Still red for some reason. That'll be because I didn't set the constraints of the image view. So width, height, top. And center horizontally. There we go. Because this one was dependent on the image view and the image view wasn't correctly constrained, that's why I was getting an error there. So let's do the same with our switch. Width, height, top. Center horizontally. Now the men and women labels are not going to be centered horizontally. We're going to set the top, the right, and then the width and the height for men, and that will then align it to the switch. Similarly for women, top, left, width and height. That will keep everything nicely aligned. And then width, height, top for our button. And center horizontally. Excellent. Let's just have a quick look and make sure that everything looks all right on our actual phone. Now I've got this issue in the simulator here where the top and bottom of the screen have been cut off, so I think that would actually be fine, but just to be on the safe side and to show you that we can move things all together, if we select everything and then move it all up like that, and then we just need to change the top constraint. Here you go, you can see we've got orange there now because we've moved it upwards. So let's look at the constraints for, there we go, sign up top. So at the moment we're out by 49 pixels because I've moved everything upwards. So let's add another one back in, which will now be top constraint of 0. So now everything looks blue, which is a good sign. And we should now be able to see everything, even on my reduced screen. There we go. Fabulous. So that's all looking good. Let's now create a couple of outlets, keeping things as tidy as we can. So I need an outlet for the image view, not inside view did load though. I'll call that user image. I need an outlet for the switch, and I'll call that interested in women, because if it's true it will be interested in women, if not it'll be interested in men, which as far as we're concerned is not interested in women. And finally we'll have an action sign up. There we go. So now we've got our view controller set up. It's now a matter of getting the user's data. So we'll do this in view did load, and we will need, and here we go. So getting information about a user is known as a graph request, because we're requesting it from what's known as the Facebook graph, which is essentially all of the user information that they hold. And we can only get this information about someone who's logged into our app, i.e. given us permission to get that information. So we're going to call it graph request, and this is going to be FB SDK graph request. Still no help from autopredict here. And we use what's known as a graph path to get the specific information that we want. We just want the general graph path, and we get that from just using me. If you want more information on this, by the way, the Facebook SDK is the place to go. That's where this is all documented. But for now, this will get us the information that we need. And then sometimes we might want to send some particular parameters, but here we don't need to. So we can just use nil. So that defines our graph request. Now we're going to start it. So graph request dot start with completion handler. And then our completion handler is going to contain connection, result, and error. As we're quite used to, we're not returning anything, so it's just to void in. And for now, I'll do a quick error check. So if error is not nil, print error. Else, if let result equal result, print result. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And with any luck, I've been able to type it without any typos. Seems to be compiling fine. There we go. So this essentially logs onto Facebook and gets information about the user that's currently logged in. So there we go. We've now got my Facebook ID and my name. Fantastic. So it's a good start, but we do want a little bit more information than that. And this is where our parameters come in. So if I want to specify what information I want to get about my user, I'm going to create a dictionary, which will have a variable called fields. And this is where I'm going to put the name of all the fields that I want. So for now, let's go for name. And we're also going to be interested in gender. And we will also want the ID as well. And that's actually all we need, because I'll show you in a minute how we can get the image for the user from their ID. So if we now run that again, we should get a bit more information. There we go. Fantastic. So we've got our ID, we've got the gender, and we've got the name, which is all we need. So let's start by saving this information to Parse. And we can do that using pfuser.currentUser. And then we want to set the gender to be result gender. And we'll set the name while we're there. We're not actually going to use the name in the app, but it's a useful thing to have. So I'm going to pop it there anyway. There we go. So now let's run that again. And this time, if I remember to actually save the data, like that, this time the data will actually be saved on Parse and we can access that later on. So let's just check that it's there. Go back to our core and users, and there we go. So now we've saved the gender and the name from Facebook onto Parse, which is great. Now let's get the user's image. Facebook images are actually public, at least the profile ones are. And we can get that from the user ID, as I mentioned. So if we use something like that, we can get it from http graph.facebook.com/ and then result ID, which is the user's ID. We can't do that using the brackets because we've got the ID in there. In fact, I think I'll just set a separate variable for user ID just to make it clear that it's a string. And then we can pop it in there. And then we use picture and then type is equal to large. So that URL will enable us to get the profile picture of any Facebook user. They don't actually have to be logged into our app because they are public. So now all we have to do is get the contents of the URL, put that in our app to show the user that we've got their image, and save that to Parse. And we do that by creating a URL, an NS URL I should say, from this string. I'll call it fbpic URL this time. So this is going to be an NS URL from a string, and the string is Facebook profile picture URL. So if we're able to create that, then we'll try and get some data from it. Can do that using NS data from the contents of a URL. The URL is fbpic URL. And for now, we'll set the image to the result. So remember the image is user image. So self.user image is equal to UI image created from data, and the data is of course data. And we've done that in such a way that we can't get a crash. The worst that will happen there is it won't save the image. But because we've checked if everything exists at each point, we should be safe. And here, again, I'm pretty confident I will be able to cast that to a string. And I may have forgotten image there. There we go, and quite reasonably it's suggesting that I use let for both of these. And we're getting that error that you may have remembered, that because we haven't added an exception for HTTP. It's actually an easy fix this time. The graph URL works just as well over HTTPS, which is advised anyway, so better to switch that to HTTPS as we can this time. And there we go. So we've got a lovely face. What a user profile that would make. So now that we've got that added to our view, the other thing to do is to save it to parse. And we do that using an image file, which is going to have a type of PF file. And then we use PF file to create a PF file for us from some data, and that data is of course data. So now we've created a PF file, and we can save that in just the same way. So PF user.current user image is equal to image file, and then we'll save the user again. There we go. We don't really need a function to happen when the save is successful, because we just want it all to happen quietly in the background anyway. So that should now save the name, the gender, and the image, which is everything we need about the person, to parse, as well as displaying their image here and getting them ready to sign up for our app. Looking good. Let's just check. There we go. So we've got our file. I can actually just click on that to download it if I want to, just to make sure it's the right file, and then have a quick look. And there it is. It is the correct image. Brilliant. So we've saved all the data that we need about the user. At least all the information from Facebook. The last bit of information that we need is whether they're interested in men or women. So we can gather that when they tap on the sign up button. So that's here. By this time, everything else should be saved. So all we need to do is pfuser.current user interested in women is equal to interested in women dot on. There we go, and once again save. And then we're going to want to segue them onto the new view controller, but that's for the next video, so we'll save that bit for now, and we'll just check to make sure that this interested in women boolean is being saved. So I'll tap sign up there, and we'll do a quick refresh, and we should find that that's now saved as well. There it is. Fantastic. So we've got all the information that we need about our users, and you can see how powerful this is, that once we integrate that Facebook login, we can find a lot of information about the user without them having to enter it themselves. So we've made good progress so far, Our next step is to display a series of users to our user for them to select or not as they wish.